All right, in this lesson, I want to go back to talking about positioning again. Last lesson, we talked about floating elements. This lesson, I want to go back to the absolute positioning and then a new one called relative positioning. So we have two divs or two boxes here, box one, box two. So those are my two divs with IDs. And then I just have a paragraph saying hello world. And what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go up to box one and I'm going to go back and do what we did earlier in this semester. And I set the position to absolute. Now, when I did that, notice what just happened to the coral box. It appears to have disappeared, but it didn't really disappear. What actually happened when you set something to absolute positioning, like this one is, it basically pulls it out of the normal flow. So here's where box one was supposed to be. It pulls it out of the normal flow and is positioning it somewhere. Now I haven't told it where to position yet, so it's still staying in the same spot. But what's happening to everything below it is that these, the div 2 or the box 2 and the hello world, the browser is just acting as though box one doesn't exist and has shifted them up. So the coral box is actually hidden behind here, and we can see that as soon as I go in and let's move this over, like let's say 50 pixels. Okay, so now I've shifted that down, and now we can start to see the coral box. And if I move it over from the left, let's say 50 pixels as well. And there we go. There is the coral box. Now notice when I shifted it down, it's now covering up the hello world. So that just shows once again how what it has done is it's pulled it out of the normal flow and it's just positioning it regardless of where other things are. And the other items are just moving up into the normal flow and also pretending like this doesn't exist. So what do you think is going to happen when I change the coral box to an absolute position? Well, let's copy and paste that down there. Oops. Okay, is that what you guessed? So now it is pretending like both of these boxes don't exist. Hello world has shifted all the way up to the top. And since both of these are positioned 50 pixels from the top and the left, they're overlapping each other. What happens though if I change this from absolute to relative? This is our new one. So instead of doing absolute, I'm going to try relative and relative. Okay, can you guess what these have done? So what's happened here is now instead of being absolutely positioned from the top, the left, the right, or wherever, relative means it's keeping it in the normal flow, but then moving it from where it would have been. So our aqua box would have been up here at 0, 0, and now it's moved it from 0, 0 over 50, down 50. My coral box would have been down here at like 250, 0, 250. Well, now it's moved it over 50 and down 50 from where it would have been. And we can see that if I take this out, okay, it moves it back up to where it would have been. And then because it's been shifted down, well, now it's covering up the hello world. The hello world is not shifting all the way up to the top because these have not been completely pulled from the normal flow. They're still in the normal flow. The browser still recognizes that they're there, unlike when it's absolute. So hello world's not shifting up, but when I move them, then it's not moving hello world. It's just moving these from where they should have been. And one last thing I want to just talk about in this one is opacity. So if these two are overlapping and I want to kind of see what's behind there, remember how we talked about opacity before. If I change the opacity of this to something like say 0.5, or I guess 6 is why I typed, not 5. Okay, you can kind of see the box behind it now. And I lied, not one last thing I want to talk about. There's one other thing that's a good thing to address right now, and that is the Z index, or as the rest of the world calls it, the Z index. Many of the tutorials I watch are created by British people or Australian and even some European countries. And it seems like all of them call Z, Z. So they always call this the Z index, which is fascinating to me. So now sometimes I accidentally call it that too because I watch so many of those tutorials. But anyways, the Z index. We know what X and Y does. X moves it left, right. Y moves it up and down. Z is then, if you think about from like your computer screen out to you. So right now, the aqua is behind, which makes sense because it's the first one here. And then the coral is the second one. But if I wanted to change that, I could change the order here, or I can use what's called the z-index. So if I come down here in my coral and do z-index, and let's set this to like -1. Notice how now it has moved it backwards. If I change it back to like 1, now it moves it forward. So that is a way to move things forward and backwards. If you have a bunch of overlapping elements, you can make use of that z-index. And by the way, my favorite color is blue. You're going to need to know that on the next assignment. We'll find out who watched the video and who did not. Until next time, have a great day.